Now, before I begin my homily, and I hope that the cameras can follow me because I didn't tell them I was going to do this, but I'm walking over here because I have some very happy news for everybody. A wonderful, wonderful man that's been part of our lives for many years is finally back. Father Bill, stand over here. Stand up, you stand up, Father Bill. Take a look that way because that's where the camera is. Very good. We're happy to have you back. Yes, we are. Thank you. All right. Good deal. Whew. And I can use the help. Okay. Now, so Mary set out and traveled to the hill country in haste to a town of Judah. When Mary set out, the emperor in Rome was Caesar Augustus. Caesar Augustus. I'm willing to bet that most of us, myself included, only know anything about Caesar Augustus, and you got to be as old as me probably or older to remember it, but do you remember the movie Antony and Cleopatra with Richard Burton as Anthony and Elizabeth Taylor as Cleopatra, Rex Harrison as Julius Caesar, and Roddy McDowell as Octavian, who becomes Augustus Caesar. Who remembers that old movie? It's a classic. It stands the test. It's a long movie, but it's historically accurate. And, you know, Julius Caesar has conquered Gaul and other places for the empire, and then he marries Cleopatra. Then he's assassinated, and Anthony marries Cleopatra, and they have this big war of who's going to run the empire. Well, the winner at the end of the day isn't a general at all. He never commanded an army. He wasn't even a soldier, but he was a very, very good internal politician, namely Augustus Caesar, the one that actually ends up on top. And he is reigning at the very moment when Mary set out and traveled to the hill country in haste to the town of Judah. And everybody in the world that Mary was living in, they knew about Augustus Caesar. He was the emperor of the biggest empire in the world. He had the biggest palace in the world, in the biggest city of the world, Rome. And his picture was on all the money. His picture was stamped on every coin they made. Everybody knew about him. He was prayed for in all the pagan temples all over the empire. Who did not know about Augustus Caesar when Mary set out and traveled to the hill country in haste to a town of Judah? Yep, he acquired what he wanted. Everything that the world could give him, in power and in money and in fame. And yet, who talks about Augustus Caesar? The centuries have come. And the centuries have gone. No, when Mary set out and traveled to the hill country in haste to a town of Judah, the only people that knew about Mary, Joseph, the people in Nazareth, her cousin Elizabeth, well, a few relations, and that was it. No Roman historian ever recorded her. She would have been totally and completely unknown. And yet, centuries and centuries later, almost 2,000 years later, no one remembers that guy who used to be a powerful and wealthy and rich man. His time came, his time went, because that is the way of the things of the world. The things of the world come and the things of the world go. But what is eternal is the things of God. And Mary, being the first Christian, the first person to accept Christ into her life, shows us that if we live our lives out as Christians, it doesn't matter what the world records, because the world's interests are very other than ours. Our interests are doing the will of God. And one of the ways, one of the most important ways we show we're doing the will of God is showing compassion and concern and care for others, because Mary has opened her heart to the Lord. And what does she do? She's pregnant herself. And yet she travels the 80 miles south to the town of Ein Kerem, where Elizabeth lived right outside Jerusalem, to take care of her. There were no OBGYNs. There were no hospitals. There was no place a woman could go to have a baby. You relied on your female relations. And the closest one to Elizabeth was Mary, and Mary came and providing a tremendous act of Christian service. So don't worry about what the world claims to be important. what's powerful and they blab about on the news, this crisis to the next crisis. Don't be jealous about the people or billionaires who can float into space. Their time has come and their time will go. But if we live lives like Mary did and open our hearts to God's love and grace, and we show that to others in compassion and caring and love for others, the world may never record us, but we'll be recorded for all time in the book of life